Yo, what's up guys? Here we are with week 1 of the PMC versus the Baltimore Oriolus and their coach CJ. I of course am the Portland Crobats. As you can see, I bring Lopunny, Hooper, Landorus, Cobalion, Magneton and Excelgor. If you haven't watched my team builder, check it out. I'll put it in the description below so you can see it before the battle. My opponent brings Manaphy, Sandslash, Jirachi, Ambor, Musharna and Hydreigon. So no Mega Sableye, which I like, so that means I can get up my spikes and stealth rocks without any problem. And looking at this team, I see that Hooper and Lopunny have a really good chance of putting in some work or potentially sweeping the game later. I decided to lead with my Lopunny, as you can see, just to get my Mega Evolution off and gain the speed boost. As he leads off with his Hydreigon, so it's probably Scarf just to scout for my sets, probably trying to U-turn out. I just go for the fake out, even though I expect the switch into Musharna, which comes in here on the fake out. I still believe that the Hydreigon is Scarf just because he let off with it, so I have to play around it, I guess, just because it outspeeds basically my entire team, because I don't have that much speed on my two Scarfus Lander and Magneton. So here I just go for the Baton Pass because I don't want to take a Psychic or a Thunder Wave. Just because I fear the Thunder Wave, I go into my Landorus, potentially knocking off some items if he stays in. But he Baton Passes out into a Sandslash, which I expect is his main answer to Lando or my other physical attackers, just like Lopunny. I just fire off an EQ expecting the Stealth Rocks, which I cannot prevent sadly, but he goes for the SD, probably expecting me to set up my rocks, but he doesn't know that I'm scarfed, so that makes sense, I guess. I just go again for the Earthquake, which could put him in Select Berry range, which seems possible just because he sets up and needs some more speed to threaten me out. But he shows the Ganlon Berry and the Natural Gift, which would have taken me out at +2. Natural Gift Ice. Very clever, but I think it was like a fault on his part to stay in just because my Earthquake was pretty obvious. Yeah, here I just go for the EQ to take this thing out, but he switches out into his Hydreigon. Good play on his part. Saves the Sandslash to Rapid Spin potentially later. Yeah, I switch out into my Cobalion, expecting the U-turn, but I can take any hit it wants to throw at me. For example, the Draco Meteor, which does like 70%. Yeah, and he U-turns out into his Jirachi. Again, versus this thing, I can take any one hit, and I just try to set up my rocks here, which I will do. I expect him to go for the Stealth Rocks here, or maybe to fire off a Fire Punch, but he U-turns out again, trying to get some momentum, probably expecting me to switch out, fearing a Fire-type attack. But yeah, here he goes into his Manaphy, which is pretty threatening to my team. At +3 it can put in a lot of work, so I don't want it to set up on me because I cannot 2-hit KO with the close combat. So I just Volt Switch out here into my Magneton, which can take a Scald, even if it's modest life orb, I believe, and threaten it out with the Thunderbolt or the Volt Switch. As you can see here, he goes for Scald here, which is a good play on his part, just because setting up so early doesn't make sense when I have potential Scarfers in the back that can threaten him out, or monster can live a +3 Scald, just like Magneton. And here I just double out because I don't want to lock myself into a Thunderbolt, or especially when in case Sandslash comes out, I don't want to lock myself into the HP Grass or the Flash Cannon, just because if he switches into Sandslash, it dies, but then again Manaphy can come in and set up or fire off another huge Scald, or even Ember can come in if I lock myself into Flashcan or HP Grass and I don't have a really good answer to Ember, as you will see later. So I go into my Aselgor here as he switches out into his Sand Slash, which is really good for me because he cannot spin away the rocks at all, and he basically just has to sack his Sand Slash here to the Bug Buzz. I decided not to go for spikes just because he can still rapid spin on me, which he probably tried to, but I just go with the safe play and kill it. So here Ember comes in, which I don't really have a switch in for. I could have set up my spikes, but I don't really want to, because I can set up 1 or 2 layers later on the Mushana, for example, or the Jirachi. And I decided to save my Aselgor just because I can put in a lot of work. Oko, Hydreigon, Mushana with the modest Insect Plate boosted Bug Buzz, so I just switch out to my Landorus, on which I don't need much HP, I figure. And I want to scout for a set if he is choice locked or if he's a life orb attacker. I get the Intimidate off and he goes for the Flare Blitz, which does a hefty chunk to my Lando, even at -1. The calcs show that it's Adamant, probably max attack, life orb, and I know he won't go for the Flare Blitz. He has to go for the Sucker Punch to kill me because he won't sack his Embers. So I just make the aggressive switch into my Mega Lopunny on the Sucker Punch, which works out for me. He withdraws here, and I can freely Baton Pass out on the Mushana switch in. So a lot of momentum on my side again, and here I go into my Aselgor just to get up my spikes, to punish his switches even more. He can't spin them away, and I'm guaranteed to get up 2 spikes because Mushana cannot Oko me from full, and I probably threaten it out again. Yeah, as he switches out, I set up my first layer of spikes as Ember comes back in. Yeah, and on next turn I decide to go for a second spike just because I don't really need Aselgor that much, just because the second spike puts Manaphy in range of the return from Lopunny, and I think that Hydreigon is scarfed, so Aselgor doesn't outspeed it, and Mushana I can kill it with Hooper easily, so I just sack my Aselgor to the Flare Blitz. And now that his Ember is so low, I just send out my Cobalion to Iron Head it and Revenge Kill it. He can't switch out because he's dead to hazards anyway. And I can bolt switch out on anything that wants to come in afterwards. He has sent out a Jirachi, and I figure he hasn't shown any item, but he doesn't show the leftovers here, as you can see. But I figure it might be a Calm Mind or substitute variant, so just want to stay in and go for the close comp because it breaks his sub, which Volt Switch probably wouldn't do, and see what he wants to do. He goes for a Psychic. That does quite a lot, but I can easily take it because I'm max HP. And now I just want to get more damage off on the Jirachi, so I go for another close combat, but he switches out, which surprised me a little bit because he could have taken me out with another Psychic. And he sends out the Mushana, and I just go for the close combat again, get some damage off. Get a crit, that doesn't really matter because close combat does nothing anyway, but this thing, and I cannot Oko it from the range it's at. Here I go for the Iron Head, trying to flinch it just because he cannot kill me if he's fully defensive, which I think it is, basing on the damage, and I just go for the Iron Head trying to flinch, but he goes for the Moonlight. And on next turn I expect him to either Baton Pass out or go for another Moonlight because I cannot touch it, and he has seen all of my moves, so he knows I cannot Toxic it or Taunt it. He probably just wants to Baton Pass out, so I go into my... what do I go into? Into my Magneton, I believe. Yeah, correct. As he Baton Passes out, makes a good play, goes into his Scarfed Hydreigon. Or I expect it to be Scarfed, but we will show now that he is scarfed, because I just sack my Magneton on the next turn here to the Hydreigon that will come in and drop a Draco on me. Shoutouts to Joey Pokegame. And yeah, I just sack my Magneton because it gives me a free switch into Lopunny or into Hooper that can basically both get a kill. So Magneton goes down, but I don't really need it just because Manaphy is at range where Hooper or Lopunny easily can kill it. So he switches out when I send out my Hooper into Manaphy. I just fire off a Dark Pulse because he can't stay in. A Draco does like 30% to my Hooper, 35 if he gets a high roll. And Manaphy goes down, which is pretty good for me just because it's a threat that can potentially clean up versus me if he is like a Rain Dance Rest Scald variant with Tail Glow. But it goes down, he sends out his Hydreigon again. The U-turn is pretty obvious, but I cannot even take it because I'm 4 times weak to it. So I just send on my Landorus, expecting a Draco to be honest, because he has to gain some momentum back just because the spikes and stuff hurt him so much on the switches. But he goes for U-turn, which doesn't kill me, and that is, I'm in a great position now. I basically win the game if I don't choke here. Just because he sends out the Jirachi, which I know I outspeed just because I'm scarfed, and I can just fire off a knockoff, which is the safest play, just because it kills the Jirachi, it kills the Mushan, and if I knock off the Hydreigon, Lopunny just cleans up the game. So he reveals the Cobra Berry, which doesn't matter at that range. I'm Adamant max attack, and I just knock it out with the knockoff. So Hydreigon comes back in again, but I just sack my Landorus here to the Draco. I don't really need it just because I have other ways to deal with the Mushana. That's his only other mon left. And I go into my Cobalion here just to revenge kill it probably, but I expect him to switch out because this thing still could have put in work for its differential. So I just volt switch out to get a switch into my Hooper that can basically kill the Mushana and get a hefty chunk off versus the Hydreigon if he decides to switch in. I really doubt he would switch out here with the Mushana just because it's basically dead to hazard and he cannot Moonlight up versus anything on my team. So don't over predict and just go for the Dark Pulse with which the Hydreigon can take, but it does still like almost 45% versus Hydreigon, which is a resisted hit, so you can kind of see the power of Hooper here. I just switch out, expecting a U-turn just of him just to get down, just to kill the Hooper, but he drops a Draco and misses. So here I just go, instead of the fake out, I just go for the return, showing that my Lopunny easily can take the Draco Meteor, and that the miss didn't even matter for differential. I just beat the Hydreigon with the return, and the Mushana will go down to the return again. So that will be the game. Definitely was a good game. I had a lot of momentum in my opinion, just because I used my Volturn core really well, I think, made the correct switches when needed, and we get the 3-0 win here in the first week, which is pretty nice. So yeah, that was week 1. I think he kinda made a mistake letting his Sandslash go down so early, just because he saw at the Cobalion, the Landorus and the Salgor, he was punished a lot by my hazards, and that basically, when I got up the second spike, it basically sealed the game for me, just because I got up so much passive damage on everything that came at it. He tried to abuse his Baton Pass U-turn core with Jirachi, Mushana and Hydreigon early, but that didn't work out in the late game just because of the damage all his mons took. So yeah, that was week 1. Week 2 we are facing the Kansas City Kakunas and hopefully get a win there too. See you next week.